Welcome to the Accepted Authority podcast, where we show you how to overcome a common growth challenge. I'm Andy Marmont, and as always, with me is Greg Roworth. G'day, Greg.
G'day, Andy.
Now, today we have a great topic. If you listen to our last episode, we talked about how to overcome and take control of your sales process. This one follows on from it. We're going to talk about how are we going to nurture our leads, our prospective clients, in a way that's not spammy, that gets results and continues to keep us as an authority, keeps us top of mind. So we're really talking about a communications approach, a strategic approach that focuses on digital, where our clients obviously are living right now, but also in our experiences, what's worked and what hasn't in terms of that lead nurture process. So I think to start with, Greg, what's your experience been when we're talking about how are we going to nurture leads in a way that allows us to still be seen as the authority over time?
Yeah, great topic, Andy. And this is one that it took me a long time to learn because I was always focused on making the sale. So, my approach was get a lead, get them into a sales meeting, put a presentation and proposal and try to close them. And if we didn't get to that point, it was like, okay, that's a lead lost. And there was no follow-up, no nurture, no comeback. What I began to learn and became very effective in our process of lead generation to lead conversion was to actually recognize that there's a value in having leads and creating an environment where leads can be nurtured before you try to push them into a sales meeting. So not to be too aggressive or pushy, I guess, around putting people into a sales meeting, but letting them self-select when they're ready to come into a sales meeting. So what I learned is that there are actually two steps in this process that we, maybe three steps. First is a lead generation process, then a lead nurturing process, then a lead conversion process. So rather than just see it all as one process, and often we talk about marketing, let's market, let's get leads into a sales meeting. So when our marketing is going out broadly to everyone to try to get them into a sales meeting, it's a very time-consuming, often expensive process in our marketing to get sales qualified leads. So if our objective is, first of all, with our marketing, is to get those people in our database, and I often have a bit of a chuckle about this. I used to hear a lot of times, when people are trying to do marketing and they don't get sales out of it, they tell me, well, at least we got our name out there. And I really came to realize it's not about us getting our name out there. It's about getting their name into our database so that we can nurture them and warm them up so they're ready for a sales meeting. So I think when we have that understanding that our objective for lead generation is to create a database of warm leads who are really going through the process of knowing us, liking us, trusting us, so they're ready for us to have a sales meeting, and they're ready for that. So, that important part of nurturing then comes into play, which was something I really didn't give much time and attention to before. But over the last few years, I've understood the value of that. But again, a lot of consultants make the mistake of sending sales information, sending like, come to a sales meeting, here's what we're offering, here's a list of our services, and come and talk to us about that. And really that salesy type messaging puts most people off. So what I found to be the best and most valuable type of nurturing information is content that adds value. Information about the problem that they typically have, problems that our ideal clients are suffering, and the information about how to solve that problem. So when we're educating and adding value that way, they don't see it as sales messages. They see it as value from us, and that through that process they start to like us and trust us to have the right solution for them. So when they're ready, they'll put their hand up and say, "Let's meet."
Wow, what a great summation! Thank you, Greg. I think just taking from that around, once you've got your lead generation process humming, is yes, I want to talk a bit more about the approach and the sort of thinking around what kind of content you need to have, because I see consulting firms have sort of two skills of thought. One is exactly what you said, the promotion element. We've got a webinar, we've got a product, we've got a service. Are you interested or not? Which obviously goes down like a lead balloon most times. The second thing, and the second approach, is irrelevant information. So this is generally where we feel like it's really important to say we won an award, or look at us. Sometimes meet a team member, but generally it's more about, it goes along the side, to me, it's along the signs of things like, well, what is really in it for them? Because as a business owner, you feel like, well, everyone should know about Harry, who's just joined our staff, or everyone should know about the award we just won, right? But that's really not the case. And I think this is where we've got to think about our nurture process is really the beginning of a long-term plan. And I'll give you an example. So I used to have an email newsletter that went out to my community, some leads, but mostly my community, 12 months ago. And that was generally about certain topics that I thought would be of relevant. But what I've done is, over the last sort of 3 months, I've changed it where I've decided to, each month I'd pick one particular challenge or one particular theme, and I would share stories based on that particular theme. So maybe it's a lesson that I've learned, maybe it's a client experience, maybe it's a result that happened, maybe it's a tool, maybe it's a report that I've seen. So essentially what we're saying there is, if you can illustrate and have content that is through story, then you're going to create their connection. People actually want to sort of read it. So as a result of that, if you look back at the initial work that we did, I was probably getting a 20 to 25% open rate, and there was maybe 100 or so people on that list. Anyway, so I pared it back, and I changed up so these are the people that basically were prospects. So it's a much smaller list initially. However, the content, the open rate is 40, 50, in some cases 60%. And as a result of that, people are actually clicking on my booking link and clicking on some of the free marketing tools. And I don't advertise it in the body of the email. That's at the end in my, what we call a super signature, which is basically, here's 3 ways we can help you. So I thought it was an interesting experiment. So now obviously all our clients and what we do, if we were looking to grow customer value, and if we're looking to continue nurturing these leads and have more conversations with these prospects, if we can design a plan that really is considered around story and considered around problem and sort of value and solution addressing, you do that every week for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, then you're going to dramatically improve your chance of not just generating leads and closing more sales, but to me, it's about also being smart about your lead nurture list and being able to actually generate activity that does make sense. And so my coach, as another quick story, he told me the other day that he had an inquiry for someone in August last year. They had a meeting. For whatever reason, it wasn't the right time. He's continued to send emails talking about solutions and problems and doing our communication cadence. And anyway, he popped up a couple of weeks ago and said, "Hey, I think we need to talk." So it's 18 months later. They've kept, there's contact. It's valuable. It's doing the right things. It's not expecting. And as a result, this is what, he's come back and said, "Look, I think we need to have a conversation." So a couple of quick stories around how, if we do our nurturing process in the right way, that's through, again, always through the lens of the customer, the lens of our ideal client, then you're gonna dramatically change your results and actually get some activity that you want. I mean, have you sort of had the similar experience, Greg, with the work that you do at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, just the last week I had a conversation with a guy who's been on my mailing list for probably just over 12 months. And he's been consuming my information. He's registered for a couple of webinars, but hasn't turned up to them. But sending another article and blog post, and he's come to the point where say, "Yeah, I think it's time we had a talk." So it's about the style of that information, the consistency of the information, and multi-channeled information as well. I think seeing not only popping up in the email inbox if they're there, but utilizing the LinkedIn connections. A lot of us are told to go out and make connections and promote ourselves, try to get into conversations with new connections. But what about all the old connections we've got that haven't communicated to us? I've prompted conversations with those people just by regularly sending another piece of value information. And I do that in a couple of ways. One is I'll send a title. I've just written an article titled blah blah blah. Would you like me to send you the link? Sometimes I'll get I'll get the response, "Yes, I'd love to read that," and so then I'll send the link. What that does is initiates a bit of a conversation, because then I can know who to go back to and say, "What did you think of the article? Or did you have any response?" Whatever, and stimulate a conversation that way. Sometimes I'll just write an article and send the link in the message. So it's just, there's no extra hoops to jump through. It's just, here's a value article. But when they get to the website with the article, there's a call to action at the end of the article that they can take another step. So, it's about varying it up and changing it up a little bit in terms of the ways that you're doing it. So it's not coming across as, well, here's a process that you're trying to get me into a sales conversation every time. I know if I read that article or I click, do it this way, that I'm going to have to say no at some point to what you're asking me to do. So, give and take, so giving value, knowing that from the client's perspective, you're thinking, here's what we know is going to be valuable to you. Here it is. Sometimes, let's see if you're interested in that. I don't want to waste your time. But other times it's just, here it is. No extra hoops to jump through, and allowing them to make the choice and then respond in their own time.
Yeah, the idea around the sending out valuable information is something that we can all do, and we just need to be smart about how we go about doing it. And obviously, we want to test out the reception of that content, because if we're not getting anyone say yes, then obviously it's not resonating. And that's how things like email, and you can check and see, how much uptake you're getting in the subject line, and also if they're reading the article, if they're clicking through the link. So it's a really valuable point, Greg, around that. I think the other point about this lead nurture piece is expectations. We know that very small percentage of people are ready to buy right now, and we shared a couple of examples, and you did before around sometimes it's just not the right time. So really, if you look at marketing as a view of it's a long-term game. Yes, we want some short-term wins because we need to be able to justify what we're doing is working. But to me, if you look at a 12-month body of work and you think, okay, out of those 12 months, we've generated, 10 new sales, but out of those, out of the 100 leads that we've generated, then 30 of those are pretty warm. We had some really good conversations. It's not quite right now, and maybe 50% of them are just not the right size or what have you. And but you do that consistently over time, and then you're going to really start build up a body of potential clients and collaborators and partners. But I think what you mentioned earlier, Greg, around consistency, that was a really important point for two reasons. One, consistency also for me says to someone that you are a person of your word, which sounds a bit weird, but if you think about and you say, look, we've got this email that we've got a content that we can send to you every so often, and maybe it's every week. But if you send it every week, or if you send it every month, or whatever you want to do, then they feel like it's not just a random exercise. They've invested into it, and they're thinking about how they go about it. So that in that small way, it actually elevates you in their eyes. But also you need consistency to be able to see, improve, and test and measure. It's no use doing something for 3 months and then saying, oh, I don't know if it worked. Classic example is that I worked with a client for 3 months, and we did an initial piece of work, and they generated leads, and there was some opportunities there, and we had a whole bunch of people that, were potential. If they pause that, then that's basically wasting all that activity. I mean, it's all, you just got to find a way to do what's working, but continue and at least continue that activity, because there's like what we call a lead perishability. There's like a lead half-life, if you like, and the longer that you go without maybe emailing or talking to them, the less chance that you're going to get about having some response. Maybe you'll get someone that says, "Oh, hey, great to connect, Greg. It's been over a year. Great to connect." But generally, you're just leaving yourself. It's just much harder to be able to have that impact and actually continue to build those relationships. So, to me, this lead nurture piece is around you establish a relationship. Not everyone's ready to buy or straight away, but if you can have a process where it's over time, it's consistent, it adds value. You look back in 12 months and say, wow, look, these are all the potential people. This is where we've got to now. That's really the goal, isn't it, of our lead nurture process?
Yeah. Really, the goal is to fill the gaps in for the client, because they've, when they first come across us, they know very little about us, and they don't know if we've got a solution for them. Half the time, they don't even know the problems they're suffering until we tell them. So, our objective is really giving clients enough information so they see some value in having an initial conversation with us, to see if working together is going to be productive and profitable. So, having a specific strategic process to do that consistently, and as you say, that consistency shows that there's integrity, but it also proves that we're reliable, and that's another step in building trust process. So, having that process, we're really answering all the questions that we know are in our clients' minds that we need to answer to make it easy for them to work with us, so that we're really overcoming all the objections that they might have in a sales meeting through our marketing nurturing process. So when they get to that point where all the objections are answered, what stops them from going ahead? It's really, if they believe all those things that are in place, that says, well, there's no reason why we shouldn't gain from this relationship. Let's take it up a notch. Let's go to the next level. So that nurturing process is all about filling in the gaps for our clients and what they need to know to make it, just a no-brainer to work with us.
If you're credited with if you diagnose the problem, then you often get credited with the solution, right? So I think you've beautifully sort of summarized what we're trying to say here. So thank you, Greg. That was fantastic. So if we want to know some more information about you, where should we go?
Okay, as always, you'll find me on LinkedIn. Just search for Greg Roworth, and also my website at businessflightpath.com.
Fantastic. You can find me at Andy Marmont on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me. Otherwise, our website is concurve.com.au. This has been the Accepted Authority podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.